Welcome to Me, Myself, and Liberty. I'm Leslie Nesmith, and today we have another one of the CD5 candidates on. Dave Greene will be joining me. So you'll have to tag your friends, share this because we want to let everybody know all about these candidates because one of them is going to unseat Kendra Horn. Maybe it's him. Also, I want to remind you to go to patreon.com/OTUmedia. This is a great way to help support us and to get the conservative message out there. You can also go to our website and order some great stuff like this Moms Demand 2A t-shirt. That's at OklahomaTaxpayersUnite.com. And you can go to our store on there and check out our stuff. All right, well, I will be right back with Dave Greene. Hi, I'm Leslie Nesmith, host of Me, Myself, and Liberty right here on OTUmedia. I'd like to ask you to go to www.patreon.com/OTUmedia to support us. By going to patreon.com, you are supporting everything that we do here at OTU Media and Oklahoma Taxpayers Unite. We are getting the word out, so join us. Welcome back to Me, Myself, and Liberty. And as you can see, Dave Greene has joined me today. And you're wearing green.
Absolutely.
Do you do that on purpose?
Uh-huh.
Okay. All right. And I want to remind you guys, if you haven't already, please share this. We want to share it. Feel free to comment. We'll answer your questions as we can. But share this. I know that all of you and your friends out there are curious about these CD5 candidates. And one of these guys or girls is going to unseat Kendra Horn. So,
Absolutely.
yes. So that maybe that'll be you, right?
No, maybe.
Okay. So a little bit about you. So you are not from around here. You were raised in West Virginia.
That's correct.
All right. And you're in Harrah currently.
I do live in Harrah.
Okay. I was raised in Harrah. Did you know that?
I did. Harrah's a lot like Hurricane, where I grew up.
Yes.
So it was all rural,
Uh-huh.
farmland type of area.
Yeah,
And,
small town. You can't see your
right.
neighbors. You know, we lived out in the middle of nowhere, so which had its advantages, you know, had its disadvantages. But you're a veteran.
I am.
Okay.
I did 22 years of active duty and retired. 30 years combination of Air Force Reserve, Air Guard, and active duty.
Okay. Well, I want to say thank you for your service.
Well, it's my pleasure.
Yes, there are two. I tell the candidates this. There are two places in my heart for two special places, and that is for veterans and for small business owners. So notice I said veterans first. All right. Okay, so something else interesting about you that I want to share with the audience is that you made two of the largest political documentaries of all times with someone that I am a huge fan of, Dinesh D'Souza.
That's correct.
I want to hear a little bit about that. Can you tell me about that? What was that like? He is so fascinating.
Dinesh is just an amazing guy. He's an intellectual. He's absolutely brilliant. And he can see things that you and I probably don't see.
Yeah.
Like when we did 2016 Obama's America, because he grew up in India, he understood what 21st century anti-colonialism is. And for you and I, or at least for me, it was quite a discovery to understand what it is. And in that film 2016 Obama's America, we literally uncovered the roots of the Saul Alinsky style politics that the Democrats have adopted, and it's horrific.
Yeah. Yeah, and everyone needs to see that. If you
Yes.
haven't seen it, you really do need to see it. Well, that is very impressive. So, what was the other one?
America, Imagine a World Without Her.
Okay.
And that was with Dinesh as well.
Okay.
So they were both with Dinesh.
Well, that's a pretty big feather in your cap. Just to not only have that experience, but just to learn from him and to be around him. He's so smart. He's just...
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like I say, he's brilliant. And not only that, but all the conservative people that were involved with it.
Oh, yeah.
You know, John Sullivan.
Mm-hmm.
These are all people that if you went to CPAC tomorrow, you would see them there.
Yeah.
So
what an honor.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah.
It was just very humbling to be around him.
Oh, yeah, I bet. Okay, so what else do we need to know about you?
I went to Marshall University. We are Marshall. If you saw that movie.
I saw that movie, and I saw Obama's America.
So, I went to Marshall a few years after the plane crash, and so the college was still recovering from that. I didn't finish a degree. I was 6 hours short of a degree in physics and 6 hours short of a degree in mathematics. So
Wow.
when they start talking about climate change, they can't pull the wool over my eyes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts on that.
Okay.
Because I know that's in
We'll
your
get into
platform.
that.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else you want to share? Anything about family? Anything like that? Or
That's pretty much my history.
Okay. All right. So you're the fourth person I've interviewed that's running for CD5.
Okay.
And luckily, thus far you have all been conservatives, and I'm like, thank goodness for that. I know that there's some controversy out there surrounding at least one or two of the other candidates, which I hope to have everybody on at some point. Tell us why you're doing this, because this is no small undertaking.
I just couldn't walk away from it. I was, like everybody else, shocked when Kendra Horn won the seat. I certainly didn't expect it. I voted. So then, as I watched her in her position, I knew that we had to do something, and it just felt like the right thing to do at the right time.
Yeah.
So I put together a platform. I have a very definitive legislative agenda to take to Washington. And I'm not going there to get along with everybody else. I'm going there to make changes.
Good.
There's a lot of things that need to be fixed. And I'll just ruffle some feathers and we'll get them fixed.
Hey, that's the best way to do it.
Exactly.
All right. So we kind of talked off camera for just a minute about so what exactly happened with Steve Russell and Kendra Horn. Are you hearing anything out there? What are people saying to you about that?
The only observation I really have is I think it was the perfect wave. I believe the teachers union and the strike of the teachers strike coincided right with the election, and I think that's the result.
Yeah, I think that had a big part of it.
Right.
Yes, definitely. Okay, so this is going to be a very expensive race. So how many times have you been asked, how are you raising money? How much have you raised?
Well, I haven't raised much, and I don't intend to.
Okay.
I am running a grassroots campaign. It's very unorthodox. I'm not taking any of the big donations.
Okay.
And everybody's told me I can't win, but I think the people have their voice.
Yeah.
So I'm talking to them.
Greene. Greene is for
With an
grassroots.
E.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I didn't put it. I've got your name written down up there. Okay,
David.
So I've got Greene with an E.
Yeah, Greene with an E, and I don't own Hobby Lobby.
Yes. Okay. So that was one of the other things I was going to say is you probably get that a lot. But hey, name recognition, man.
That works, right?
Hey, there is a lot of people who love the Greene family. I'm one of
And
them.
I am too. And
Yes.
I think David Greene is a tremendous individual. He put it all on the line.
Yes.
For a very good cause, and because of what he did, we benefit.
Oh, definitely. And if you're going to share a name with somebody, that's the person
Absolutely.
to share the name with. Okay. All right. So this is a question I ask everyone, but it's actually part of your platform, and it's about draining the swamp. So how do you intend, once you get to Washington if elected, how do you plan to deal with the swamp?
There's two things that I think that we can do legislative to drain the swamp. Everything that President Trump's doing is right, but it's all executive action and it can go away with him. So what we need is legislation to drain the swamp. One is term limits. Everybody's pretty much aware of that. I support term limits. I think it's a legislative action that can help drain the swamp. The other is I think we need to bring Congress home. The senators should have an office in the state capitol so that if Governor Stitt wants to talk to him, he walks down the hall and there's his senators.
Yeah.
Representatives, like I'm running for, should have an office in the district. That way, if you want to talk to your representative, you drive around the block.
Mm-hmm.
But if a lobbyist wants to talk to me, they got to get on an airplane in Washington, D.C., fly to Oklahoma, rent a car, drive around 5 districts in the state, spend a couple days in motels, buying Oklahoma food. Then they can talk to all of us, but then you come right in behind them and give your opinion of it. And then they get on a plane and fly back to the swamp. And I think that's the way it should be. We should be here to serve you and telecommute to Washington, D.C. I mean, if I can take my phone, touch a screen, and there's my daughter, and I can have a live face-to-face conversation with her, then I could sit in a place like this and have a teleconference to do all the committee work, all the votes, everything else. So it's the 21st century. Let's live in the 21st century.
Well, I like those suggestions, and I'll tell you that so far, I've talked to 4. You're the 4th, great candidates, and everyone talks about draining the swamp, but that's the first really articulated plan, really, know. And I know everybody means it and everybody wants to, because I know we're all sick of it.
Right.
But no, I think that's a fantastic
And Bring Congress
idea.
Home is a campaign that we're going to be running. Hopefully it will have a life of its own. We've trademarked it so that we can develop it and pursue it.
Awesome. I think that's great. Okay. So next on your plan is the FSA plan. Do we have that where we can show
The
it?
flexible savings account.
Yes. Flexible savings accounts, which our audience may have heard a little bit about this, but why don't you explain to them what it is in kind of a short definition, if you can.
Well,
but not your plan, but just to explain what an FSA is, and then we'll get into what your plan is.
Flexible savings account is an account that would be opened by the government for you. You would be in control of it, but there would be restrictions upon it. It would receive money from the government, just like Social Security and all the deductions that are taken out of your paycheck now by force, would go split up among all of us into this flexible savings account. Then you can invest it in a mutual fund where it earns like 7.5% interest or more annually. Right now, all of our entitlements are a divestment of public funds. So there's our public treasury. They're taking it and handing it out. This is an investment of our public funds. So it grows and it can produce greater wealth than anything we are looking at right now.
Okay. And so for the audience, your plan, where is it online? Where can they find it?
www.davidgreene, and that's with an E on the end, .me.
Okay. I want to make sure everybody has access to that. Okay. So we are at the point where we have to take our first break. But when we come back, we can talk a little bit more about the FSA plan, if you'd like, and then move on to the rest of your platform.
That would be great.
All right, we'll be right back.
Introducing All new, safe, natural relief. A cannabinoid-rich, clarity and focus formula with 17 essential supplements. When it matters most, you've got a job to do. Anxiety isn't an option. Programmed to keep you moving. A product exclusively manufactured for Active Duty RX by Cantech Labs.
Welcome back to Me, Myself, and Liberty. I have Dave Greene with me. He is running for CD5. He is one of the people who has a chance to unseat Kendra Horn. So we're happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're talking about your platform, and we were discussing the FSA, the Flexible Savings Account plan. Did you have anything else you wanted to talk about on that?
Well, no, but if I could back up for just 1 second about draining the swamp, something that we need to be aware of is that there's 100,000 lobbyists in Washington, D.C. in a 2-3 mile radius of the U.S. Capitol, and they will spend $1 billion influencing your legislature. And that's why I think we need to bring Congress home so they're not right there beside your legislatures. 85% of the laws are written by lobbyists.
That's just crazy. That is not how it was meant to be.
No.
At all.
So that's why I salute President Trump for taking it on to drain the swamp, and that's what we need to continue legislatively.
Yes, I agree. Definitely. All right, so let's see here. Next is energy independence. So tell us about that.
Well, I did a documentary called The Grand Energy Transition. It was mainly about natural gas and centered around the Hafner family. Hafner Parkway, Hafner Lake, Robert Hafner III. In that, we looked at, in 1985, the Fuel Use Act just absolutely killed natural gas. If that would not have happened, probably 90% of our cars that we would be driving right now would be running on natural gas. American energy independence is an absolute. It can't be questioned. Kendra Horn voted against drilling on public land. 1 out of 5 jobs in Oklahoma are oil and gas, directly oil and gas related. And why would you devastate an industry that your state runs on? It makes absolutely no sense to me. Windmills, the wind doesn't always blow. Solar panels, the sun doesn't always shine, and even when they do, they are extremely inefficient at converting energy. So the choice right now is gas, oil, coal. When we did the Grand Energy Transition, you look at history and there's a natural transition of where our fuel comes from. It used to be solid, Man started out burning wood, and then they learned to burn coal. And then they learned to refine oil and burn oil. And then they found the gases. So it just keeps going. And then the next logical stage after natural gas is nuclear. Nowhere in there do you see wind and solar because it's just too inefficient and costly to ever power a country the size of ours.
Yes. And so, it's foolish. I mean, the people that, I want a green planet a green planet. Didn't ching. But we have to be smart about it.
Absolutely we do.
Yeah.
And there's nothing saying that natural gas is not a green fuel. That's just a narrative. This green energy thing is a narrative that's been made up by political pundits to promote a party.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And there's no science behind it, none at all.
Yeah, no, actually, the science is on our side of things.
Yes.
They just don't pay any attention to the actual science.
They
like the science fiction stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a great way to put
Yeah,
it.
yeah. They like
They love science fiction.
I like science. They like science fiction.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have the First Amendment. So this is something that is under attack in so many ways right now. So let's talk about that. Talk about the First Amendment.
Well, it's unquestionable what our founding fathers put forward and why we have the Bill of Rights. The First Amendment guarantees speech and religion, and both of them are intertwined. LBJ brought about the Johnson Amendment, which limited the church's voice.
Mm-hmm.
The church is the only 501c that their voice is limited.
Yeah.
And you got to ask yourself, why? And they say, oh, because, it could lead to taxes not being collected. Well, then just collect the taxes. I mean, it's not rocket science.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And if a church doesn't want to pay taxes on their political speech, then they won't have political speech.
And there are a lot of people that feel that way.
Right. So, but why should the government? I mean, that's what they do in Russia and China and all the socialist states, is they limit religious speech. And we need to fight that every step of the way. So I will fight to repeal the Johnson Amendment. And I think Senator Langford is fighting that right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I would join with him to fight that.
And this misconception about separation of church and state, I noticed that you addressed that as well.
Yes, it's a complete misconception. It says the state will not force a religion upon you. That doesn't mean you can't pray in school. It doesn't mean we can't have the 10 Commandments on the lawn of the Capitol. That's, again, a false narrative, a false paradigm put forth by the socialists to control speech.
Yes, definitely. That's all it is. So I hope everyone is listening out there. Do your research. What I'm finding to be more and more disturbing is, the future of the state, the future of the country, the future of the world. They're in school right now, and what they are being taught about these issues, about the First Amendment, about the Second Amendment, about all of this, they're being given a very clouded version
Of history.
Yes.
I call it the Zen narrative because it goes back to Howard Zen. We talk about this in America, Imagine a World Without Her. He was a communist that rewrote American history, and it's being taught in school. Columbus was a terrorist, things like that. And Columbus never set foot in America, He was down in the islands.
Mm-hmm.
He never came in America, so you can't say that he was the first American terrorist. That's just a flat-out lie. Not only because he wasn't a terrorist, but because he never got into America.
Yeah.
So,
for so many reasons.
Yeah.
For so many reasons it's wrong. Okay. So, anything else in the First Amendment you want to talk about?
No, I think that covers
Okay.
it.
So,
in
one
a
of
nutshell.
my favorite subjects, as we can tell, the Second Amendment. Of course, it's under attack all over the place right now. Let's talk about that. What is your platform in regard to the Second Amendment?
I really don't understand why we even have to have this conversation.
I don't either.
Because there's no more concrete verbiage in the Constitution than a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
So when you say shall not, you mean maybe sometimes it can be infringed?
No.
No?
There's
Never?
Shall not. I mean,
Okay.
that's as concrete as it gets. And I'll fight. I'll fight any effort to infringe on that right.
Yeah, and we're seeing that now. We have our version here in Oklahoma of, some people say constitutional carry. It's not really constitutional carry. It's permitless carry. If it were constitutional carry, then we wouldn't have anything, a bill or anything in place saying that, let's outline this in the state of Oklahoma. But we do have these restrictions. And now they're trying to get rid of that little bit that we got, the permitless carry. It's under attack here. It's under attack everywhere. And It is so important. It's the only way to guarantee any of our other rights.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's why our founding fathers put it in the Constitution. You know, when our founding fathers were writing the Constitution, they hadn't come back from a hunting trip. They had just freed a nation. That's a big difference. That is a huge difference.
Yes, yes.
And they understood that without an armed populace, we would always be subject to tyranny.
Yes.
So that's why they gave us the Second Amendment and gave it in such concrete language. You look at Venezuela, they took away the arms, and person after person in Venezuela talks about that. Says they would have at least had a fighting chance had they kept their guns.
Yep.
Happened to the Jews and under Hitler. Happened in Russia. Happened in China. Everywhere people's arms are taken, tyranny prospers.
Yes. And this is something I want to say to the parents out there. I cannot express this enough. You know, I've talked about my kids, and my husband and I have a total of 6 kids, ranging in age from 5 to 26. The oldest 3 graduated from public school. The next one, my stepson, he will also. The youngest 2 are in a private school, and there is a reason for that. And it's because they are being told lies about this. Please don't assume that because you live in Oklahoma, or that because you live in Edmond, Oklahoma, or wherever you live, that your kids are not being given being taught some sort of scrubbed out, version of this, because they are being taught. Socialism, all of this is creeping in. There are teachers that are they're talking to your student or to your child about these issues, and they are demonizing the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, and they are rewriting history.
Absolutely.
So please talk to your kids and make sure they're getting the real history on this. I'm getting the break sign, so we're gonna take a break right fast.
Okay, let me get one thing in real quick.
Okay.
Take your kids to an NRA class.
There you go. Hey, that's a great idea. All right, we'll be right back.
Hey everybody, Todd Tucker here. Are you tired of Big Mobile making deals with dirty DC politicians to amplify liberals and silence conservatives like you? Do you want the same quality of service that you get from your current provider without supporting leftist, anti-American subversives like Kendra Horn and Nancy Pelosi? Well, Patriot Mobile can help you, and they can make a great deal. Ask what Patriot Mobile can do for you, and ask what Patriot Mobile can do for your country. Call Patriot Mobile today at 877-367-7524. 877-367-7524. Be a patriot. Join Patriot Mobile.
When I'm with you, there's no one else around. Yeah, I'm so high, gravity can't hold me down. Imagine.
Welcome back. I am talking to Dave Greene, candidate for CD5. And if you're with us for the last segment, we were talking about one of my favorite subjects, the Second Amendment. Yeah. So is there anything else you wanted to say on that?
No, it's concrete. I mean, there's no room for interpretation.
Okay, so shall not be infringed means shall not be infringed.
Like old cowboy wisdom, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
That's
Second
right.
Amendment ain't broke.
That's right. Okay, so now debt. I know this was one of the things that you wanted to talk about also, and you have a handy spreadsheet which we can put up there on the screen.
Yeah, that's
the audience.
The debt clock.
They may not be able to see it real clearly. We'll stick it up there for just a second, and
if you Google
there we go.
U.S. debt clock, this runs live, so
okay,
you can see our debt just rolling up as you sit there.
Yeah,
it's frightening.
Yes,
$22.5 trillion in debt, but the most frightening figure is in that first square and down on the right, we're 105% of GDP.
Mm-hmm.
That means we have more debt than money we make. And we're one of the very few countries that are in that position. Greece was in that position at 120% of GDP, and we know what happened with Greece.
Oh yeah.
This is no longer something that we can live with.
And we don't have to look at that on the screen anymore.
And
no one's gonna be able to read it.
This is something that we have to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And these are hard decisions to make, but they're fairly easy plans to enforce. There's a few of them up there. Freeze the budget where it's at. It would take about 6 years for the budget to balance, and then we could start reducing the debt. The other one's called the penny plan. If you got $1 in your budget this year, you get 99 cents next year. And we reduce it, and in 3 years we have a balanced budget and then can start reducing our debt. We have to become fiscally responsible because we're setting up our children and grandchildren for a major economic collapse.
Oh yeah.
And that's just not fair to them.
Yeah, no, and everyone is so afraid right now of a recession. Of course, that's the new thing to try to attack the Republican Party is talking about. They're trying to bring about a recession, almost like trying to will it. But it's really part of the natural cycle of things as they are now. And it, I guess, traditionally happens about every 7 years, and we're, 10 years?
It used to be a natural cycle.
Yeah.
And that's in a supply and demand economy. When your supply exceeds your demand, then there has to be an adjustment. But since the Federal Reserve came into being, when they signed the act, they said recessions will no longer just happen, they will be planned.
Mm-hmm.
And the Federal Reserve is the one who plans our recessions. And that's an unfortunate artifact of taking us off the gold standard and just printing money at will. The quantitative easing that happened in Barack Obama's presidency, people just don't understand how amazing our economy is because of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Because he was set up to take the hardest recession that we have seen in our lifetime because of the quantitative easing and the fiscal policies of the Obama administration. He did the right things. He cut taxes, stimulated the economy, and there was enough GDP growth that it kept us out of a recession, and it's still doing it now.
Yeah.
But, we don't know where the Federal Reserve is. It hasn't been audited. It needs to be audited. Congress needs to take responsibility back of handling our money. That's one of the fundamental tasks that is outlined in the Constitution that Congress is to handle.
Yeah.
And that's the coining and handling of our money. And they've pushed that off into the Federal Reserve, and I don't think that's right.
No, definitely not. So for those of you watching, just make sure that if you want to see his plan up close, that you go to
www.davidgreene, with an E on the end, .me.
Okay. All right, so let's talk about defense and national security.
I traveled all over the world. I spent a lot of my adult life in the Middle East. I know the players on both sides, our allies and our axis. If you have to walk on the battlefield, you want to walk on with a technological advantage. I've seen both happen. And there's no way I ever want to send the men and women who don the uniform and protect us, protect our freedom, into a battle without the best advantage that they can possibly have. So there will be no doubt that I will arm and equip our men and women in uniform. As far as national sovereignty and the national security, if we need a wall on the southern border, then let's build the wall. We need to know who's in our country and who's not in our country. And I know in a couple slides I have immigration, but I'm just going to handle that right now.
No, go ahead. Go to slides, fine.
Immigration was not an issue until LBJ and the Democrats made it an issue. We used to have a program called the Bracero program, and anybody from outside the country could sign up for it. Any employer inside America could look at the roster and hire people off the roster. They came here, we knew who was here. They were paid a minimum wage. They were given safe working conditions, safe living conditions, good food and clean water. And it worked beautifully. And then, lo and behold, LBJ and the Democrats killed it on behest of the Farm Workers Union.
Mm-hmm.
Last year there was a study, and they looked back to see if that had made any difference. Farm workers' employment did not go up, and farm workers' wages did not go up. It had absolutely no effect, killing a very well-oiled program.
Mm-hmm.
So we need the Bracero program back. We need to secure our border, keep MS-13 out, let
Yes.
migrant workers in, and then we need to fix our immigration system. My campaign manager is from Russia. He grew up in USSR. And if you want another guest, let me tell you, he's got a phenomenal story to tell.
Oh, I might have to have him on.
Because he was carrying a Bible, he got beat so bad that they thought he was dead. He came to in a morgue. The power was out. They had put the bodies on ice. The ice had melted, and he woke up with dead bodies floating around.
Wow.
He can tell you what it's like to live in socialism, communism, because he grew up in the USSR.
Wow. And there's so many stories like that the kids these days they're not hearing any of it.
No.
They just think it's some sort of utopia,
Right.
where we all hold
They've been-
hands
they've
and
been
take
lied
care
to.
of each other. Yeah. Okay. So do you want to move on to the environment?
Sure.
AOC's favorite subject, since we're going to have no planet in 12 years.
Right. So let's all just party and have a great time.
That's right.
You know?
Hey, let's do like Obama and buy a multi-million-dollar mansion. Where did he buy it? Did you hear about that? It's like it's somewhere where it wouldn't be if you're really concerned about the environment. Let's just put it like that. He's not really concerned about the environment, but go ahead.
So climate change is, again, a manufactured paradigm for political purpose. The IPCC, climate models are made on what's called fluid dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
And in fluid dynamics, there's skeptics and there's alarmists, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
in the climate argument. They're scientists. All of them are scientists. The alarmists say that because we're putting carbon in, it's going to, every time you double carbon, it makes the temperature rise 1.1 degrees Celsius. Nobody argues that. That's absolutely true. We can prove that. But because the carbon goes up, the heat goes up, and they say more water is evaporated into the atmosphere, which H2O is the greatest greenhouse gas.
Mm-hmm.
So they say that the effect of carbon will be multiplied times 3 by the effect of water being evaporated. The skeptics say, no, that's not what we're measuring. So they say it's actually a reduction because the water bounces so much radiation out. What we have not seen is we have not seen more rainfall, which we should.
Mm-hmm.
So the skeptics' models are much more accurate than the alarmist model. So unfortunately for AOC, we're going to be around more than 12 years.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is what they're the about having the pollution and you just said it. What is the gas?
The carbon. Carbon dioxide.
What plants need? Yes. So and we have more forest than we've ever had in the history of the world, and we have more carbon dioxide, right?
Yes.
Am I saying it right? I'm not a scientist, by the way.
Yes. CO2.
And plants need CO2 to live.
That's correct.
So.
And that's why it's called a greenhouse gas, because they
Yes.
use it. That's what they grow on. That's the fundamental building block of plants.
Yes, and they're trying to make it sound like it's this scary thing that's going to suffocate us all. But really, we have, it's needed in order to maintain the environment.
It's just like the deal with the Arctic ice. I was listening to the founder of Greenpeace, Dr. Anyway, he was talking, he says, they're all upset about chunks of ice floating around up there. He says, but that's the way it has to be. He says, if you want to see the polar bears die off, freeze the Arctic, because that ocean water up there has to have plankton in it to feed the fish. The fish feed the seals feed the polar bears. So if you want to get rid of polar bears, just freeze it. There's no plankton, there's no polar bears.
Yeah. True.
So he says it's always been that way, it's always going to be that way, and it's healthy for polar bears. So,
yeah.
And of course we know that the polar bear population was decreasing because of hunting, not because of environment. And now that we're controlling the hunting, the polar bears are coming back in great force.
Yeah.
So
that doesn't go along with the narrative. I'm sorry, Dave.
Well, that's right. I feel sorry for the scientist that's going to have to sit in front of me in a hearing.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so next is the fair tax.
I'm a huge supporter of the fair tax. It gets rid of the other 100 taxes that we're currently paying. It brings us down to one tax, and that's a retail tax. You step up to the counter, if it costs you $1 for a bottle of water, you pay $1.31, and you're done. There's fewer people reporting taxes, so there'll be a lot less cheating on taxes. The penalties will be a lot greater, and store owners, they don't want to lose their store and their livelihood and everything else over 31 cents. So they're going to be much more honest about reporting. This is not just Dave Greene talking. This is 80 leading economists have penned a letter, an open letter to the White House and Congress stating the effects that I state here about the fair tax. It will be the greatest job creating bill that's ever been put before Congress. It is the greatest researched bill that's ever been put forth in front of Congress, yet we can't get it out of committee. And the reason being is because it takes political power away from politicians and gives it to you, the people. So I'm a supporter of the fair tax, and I will definitely promote it on Capitol Hill.
Okay. All right. So are we at the point where we need to take a break? All right. So we're going to take a break, and we'll be back, and we will continue talking to Dave Greene about his platform.
Introducing all new, safe, natural relief. A cannabinoid-rich, clarity, and focus formula with 17 essential supplements. When it matters most, you've got a job to do. Anxiety isn't an option. Programmed to keep you moving. A product exclusively manufactured for Active Duty RX by Cantech Labs.
Welcome back to Me, Myself, and Liberty. And I do want to give a shout out to Jackson Tillman. If you guys like my catchy bumper music, did you like that? That catchy, yeah. Jackson Tillman, they are actually, that's one of their original tunes. So you guys can look them up. They're gonna be so famous they won't even know who I am before too long. But
kind of reminds me of Jerry Jeff Walker.
Oh yeah,
and that's the sound.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah, I like it too. All right, so we talked about immigration previously. So let's move on to Right to Life, and tell us about your thoughts on that.
Well, I'm very pro-life. Our forefathers founded the country on 3 unalienable rights: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And they put them in that order for a reason, because without life, you can have neither liberty or pursuit of happiness. Without life and liberty, you cannot pursue happiness. So life is the most fundamental right that our country was founded on, and we have to decide who we are. Are we going to protect that right or not? Science tells us clearly that life begins at the zygote. And that is immediately after conception. So you can say anything you want, but science defines when life begins, and it begins right after conception. So are we going to protect life or not?
You know, it's amazing to me how this has moved so far over the years. If we were to find a single cell organism on the moon, we would be declaring that we found life.
Exactly.
Or on Mars.
And we would
or wherever.
find life.
Yeah, and it is life.
It is life. Right.
But we would celebrate that. I mean, we're protecting eagle eggs and turtle eggs and all
Right.
this other nonsense, but an actual human life. Now they're saying all the way up to, I mean, basically birth. You can that it's not
some they're saying after birth.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
I mean, that is just insane. This one is a tough one for me because in politics it's hard to speak in absolute terms sometimes, but I just don't understand people of faith voting Democrat. I just really struggle with that. And I know people, I say this every once in a while, that I've got a couple of friends who watch this program and they're Democrats, and I don't understand it to save my life. I don't.
How many times did God blind Pharaoh's eyes, harden his heart?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a spiritual thing.
It is. I don't understand it. I don't understand how people, how I don't understand not being pro-life.
Now, to give you a little insider scoop, we don't know exactly who the speaker is yet, but the campaign is sponsoring a Let Them Live rally and march December 10th. We hope to march from somewhere south of OCCC up to OCCC. Then we're having the rally that evening in the VPAC Theater, which seats 1,000 people, and to bring awareness that there's options to abortion.
Yeah.
And we've got a really tremendous speaker lined up. We just haven't crossed the T's and dotted the I's yet. So over the next couple days, just kind of take a peek at www.davidgreene.me.
Yes.
And you'll see the Let Them Live March and Rally come up.
Yes. Well, I will definitely look at that.
December the 10th.
December the 10th. This is so important. And, parents need to be talking to their kids about this too. I mean, this is another one of those issues where science is science. There's no,
I mean, how can you argue?
You really can't, not in any kind of...
Biology 101. You go high school biology. You go and look at the human life cycle. It begins at the zygote stage and it ends in the geriatric stage.
Yes.
So there's nothing to argue there. I mean, this has been established for hundreds of years.
All right. So next we talk about socialism, right?
Yes.
Yes. So socialism. Listen up. We're talking about socialism, which is not a good thing. Socialism is not social media. Socialism is not living together and holding hands and taking care of one another. That's not what socialism is. But your children are being taught this to some degree in school right now.
If there's any question about where socialism ends up at, we've seen it in our lifetime. Just look at Venezuela.
Mm-hmm.
It was the richest country in South America, and within a decade, they're getting water out of sewer pipes. They're starving to death.
Mm-hmm.
They're standing in line for bread. Socialism takes care of the few and devastates the many.
Mm-hmm.
Capitalism, on the other hand, has lifted more people out of poverty and advanced the human condition further and faster than any other socioeconomic system around. So, I mean, the comparison between the two is just black and white. If you want to live in poverty, stay with socialism. If you want to live in prosperity, go with capitalism. And again, just look at Venezuela.
Yeah, yeah. Socialism is not the answer. Whatever you're being told, it's not the answer. Capitalism
And while we put socialism and we talk about socialism, it's actually any form of collectivism. And whenever government power or the power is centralized, you have a form of collectivism. And that's why we need to drain the swamp. That's why our entitlements need to be refined, where they're investment by you rather than a divestment by government bureaucrats. We need to reduce the size of government. We need to put the people in power and then step back and let the people develop this nation or keep developing the economy, because we do a much better job at it than government ever could.
Oh yes, government pretty much screws everything up.
Right, and think about it. So if we have an issue with your mic right here and we need it fixed, if we put one person on that job, let's say it's a design deficiency, if we put one person on that job, they'll go through some reiterations and eventually come up with a solution. If we put it out to 1,000 people and say, hey, bring me the best solution, guess what we're going to have really fast and really well is a solution, because we put it out to 1,000 people. So
True.
that's the difference between capitalism and socialism. And you better hope that one person that's redesigning that mic knows what they're doing. Because a lot of times in government, it's who you know, not what you know,
Oh yeah.
that gets you into a position.
Oh, that's true. That's true for sure. All right. So, do we have time to get to questions, or do we need to take another break? Break. All right, we're going to take a quick break.
Another one drives a truck.
Visit cdluniversity.org.
At CDL University, and another success, and another success. Another one drives a truck. Hey, gonna help you too. Another one drives a truck.
Welcome back to Me, Myself, and Liberty, and we are wrapping up. We're on the last leg here. So I always want to make sure I go through all of these topics with each of my guests, but since you had, such a, well put together platform, which a lot of them do, but yours actually hit a lot of the points that I wanted to talk about. So I always want to ask, would you support funding the border wall? Do you have any thoughts
Absolutely.
on that? Or okay.
If we need it to secure the border, to keep our national sovereignty in place, then we build the wall.
All right. I think I know the answer to this. Do you believe that tax dollars should be used to pay for elective abortions?
No.
Okay. And these are questions that actually came directly from our audience, specifically for CD5 candidates. And I think the reason is because the direction CD5 is going right now. HR 5 Equality Act. This is one that is very concerning. Are you familiar with the
Yes.
Equality Act? Any thoughts on that?
This is something that I ask people when I go out and about, and I ask them, I say, are you okay with a man in a woman's restroom? And I've had one person say, well, I'm kind of on the fence about that.
Oh.
Everybody else, no, they're not
No.
okay with it. Boys and girls sports, no.
No.
Boys going into the girls' locker rooms, no.
No.
Into their shower, no. Nobody's okay with that.
I don't know how you can be pro-woman and pro all this equal rights stuff and want your daughter going up against a male athlete who identifies as
Exactly.
I mean, that doesn't make sense. That is the antithesis of equal rights for women.
And being in the film business, I've worked with a lot of gay people, and I've worked with transgender. And there's one that I stay in contact with, and we are able to have these political discussions. And he is transgendering from a man to a woman, and I ask him, I said, what do you think about it? He says, I'm not in favor of it. Even the transgender.
Oh, a lot of the gay community, they
is
are not
not in
for
favor.
this. Yeah.
Anatomy matters, and
Yeah.
that's what we need to put in our law, that anatomy matters. Whatever your anatomy is, that's the restroom you use.
That's right.
And if you have a male's anatomy and male hormones, then you don't compete in women's sports.
No.
So,
And that's another one of those common sense scientific things that it infuriates me when you hear the other side say how conservatives are science deniers. And
right.
It's like the entire Democratic platform is based on denying science.
Yes.
So, okay. We've talked about government waste, and let's see if there's anything else here. Okay, so this is important because I do have one fan out there that is for sure going to be interested in this. Are you for parental choice concerning vaccines?
I don't think that's a federal decision. I would leave that to the states, but I'm always in favor of parental choice.
Okay.
Parents need to raise their children,
Mm-hmm.
and the government needs to not raise their children.
Yes. Okay,
So-
and I think that's what she would want to hear. So I'm sure she's liking them right now. Okay, so real quick, how do you think Governor Stitt is doing?
From everybody I talk to, they love the guy.
Okay, I think he's doing pretty good so far too. And President Trump, if he were watching right now, who knows? He likes to watch,
I would say that he's great. He drives the Democrats crazy, but if you ever read his book, The Art of the Deal, you understand why he does what he does. He sets people up, then he goes in a hardball negotiation, and he comes out with favorable results. He's kept his word on everything. The embassy is now in Jerusalem. He has defunded Planned Parenthood as much as he can. So, I mean, he's just promise after promise, promise made, promise kept. And I really like seeing that in a politician because
Yes.
it's rare.
it is very, very rare. Okay, so where can our audience find you? What do you want to tell them? Give them your speech. Vote for me because...
Vote for me because I'm going with an agenda. Some of the other candidates, you might hear them say that they're great conservatives, and that's great. We need conservative people, especially lawmakers. That they're going up there to work with President Trump. Well, great, but what if President Trump's not there? What are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
That they're going to take Oklahoma values and work hard for it. That's great. But what are they going to work hard at? What we need to see are legislative agendas, and that's why I've been so articulate in my platform. You know what I'm going to do when I get there. I'm an outsider. I'm not taking the big money. The only way I win this election is if you get behind me.
All right.
So,
Yeah, one thing I've said to the audience over and over is don't assume that your candidate has the money they need. Every
I can
candidate.
guarantee
If you believe in what Dave is saying, you need to get behind him and support him. We need to support the candidate that we believe in, okay? So don't assume that the candidates don't need your help. If you have a candidate that you believe in and that you support, you need to get behind them and you need to support them, and that means putting your money into it.
And we're running our candidate our campaign week by week. We run what's called a $5 Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And on Fridays we ask for a $5 donation. I don't think that hurts anybody. I think everybody can play in that game. And it gets us to buy the paper and the ink and pay the few people that we're paying to run this week after week. The other thing is with this rally coming up,
Mm-hmm.
with this Let Them Live. Watch for it in the next few days. It'll come up on the website, and pitch in for that because that's going to bring our speaker in, and that's going to keep it free so that we can get as many students from OCCC into that audience because it's the 20-something-year-olds that the abortion industry targets.
Yeah.
And this is our chance to put a voice in front of them that says there's other options.
Yes. I
So-
think it's great.
Even if you don't really want to support me, which I hope you do, please support that rally because that is extremely important.
Yes, our audience is definitely a pro-life, abolitionist type of audience. So, all right. Well, Dave, thank you for joining us today.
It's been my pleasure.
I hope that you'll come back again and talk.
I'd be
some
glad
more.
to.
All right. You've been watching Me, Myself, and Liberty, and I will see you next week.